Hi, my name is Mitchell Hurd. Today is June 7th, 2025, one day before what would have been my sister Danielle Hurd Molell's 45th birthday. Danielle died September 13th in 2024 after an improbably short battle with breast cancer at a heartbreakingly tender point in her life, leaving behind her 3 precious young children. Before she died, she left me with an extremely important message to deliver to the world. I had the privilege and the honor of recording one final interview with Danielle before she died so that she could tell her story and so that others might be saved from a similar fate and her death not be in vain. Please watch. So, let me just get into this. As far as I recollect, this journey began before I had any knowledge of it. You discovered a lump, and that was in the summer of 2022 in August. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So after you discovered that lump, you did the right thing and followed scheduled visits, although, as I remember, your medical team didn't really sense the urgency, so the mammogram did take quite a while, another 3 months into November to actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct?
Correct.
And at which time they did see something suspicious, scheduled a biopsy, and discovered that, in fact, the mass that was detected on the mammogram after you had felt that was cancerous. Is that right?
Right.
And so naturally you had some questions, one of which was just wondering, how long have I had this thing? This was in November of 2022 that you asked the radiologist this question, and they responded by saying basically, hard to tell, but likely it was roughly how old?
It was actually the oncologist or the surgical, the breast surgeon, who said hard to tell, but probably between 10 to 12 months.
Okay, so the breast surgeon, the oncological surgeon, who was evaluating the scans, the biopsy, determined that the mass was roughly between 10 and 12 months old. And this is in November/maybe December of 2022. Now, for me, this, of course, immediately conjured up some thoughts because I remember a year prior in December of 2021 being engaged heavily in talks with you about the mounting pressure you were facing at your job, which was to complete your full course of COVID-19 vaccination. Is that correct?
Correct. I hadn't had any vaccinations up until after Lomayani was born. I managed to get them to allow me to stay employed until he was born, and then they agreed that they kept on wanting me to have it quickly, but they finally agreed upon a date so that I could teach in the spring. And because of that, I would have to have the 2 Pfizer shots back to back as quickly as they could. And this was shortly after I started breastfeeding Lomayani. And I think I had maybe 2 or 3 weeks before I had to get my first shot.
I remember this as well. So you're breastfeeding, your third child. You're being told, okay, because you just had a baby and you're still breastfeeding, we'll give you a little bit more time, but basically if you don't come back with the first shot by, let's say, New Year's Day, I think it was like between Christmas break and New Year's, sometime in late December of 2022, you don't have a job on Monday. That was basically the deal, right?
Right.
Okay, so you go through with it, you get double vaxxed up. That's December and January respectively. That's the first month of 2022. In August, you feel the lump. That's 8 months after your first dose. And you go get your mammogram and have a consult with an oncological surgeon, breast surgeon, who's, advising at least a disectomy or maybe a double mastectomy. I can't remember. We can get into that later. Who places the age of this tumor at about 10 to 12 months. Is that accurate?
Yes.
All right. So since then, that first diagnosis, I think there was, first they were telling you you should stop breastfeeding before the surgery. That was in December. I think your diagnosis was December 9th of 2022. I have really clear memories of all this because of certain things in my life that was happening at the time. It was a Wednesday night you called me. I'm going to sort of speed through the end of this because I think we got the majority of the most important stuff, which is, again, the pressure, being forced to take the double Pfizer vax if you wanted to keep your job by a certain date, and then the timeline between the time you got those and the time you discovered a lump and then got the scan, etc. All right, so why are we making this video right now? Why are we filming this? It's simple. The system was set up so that people would be forced to take the vaccine to just live a basic life, let alone forget about traveling and going to your favorite concert or movie, to keep a job, to provide for your 3 children as basically the primary breadwinner and insurance provider in your household. Is that basically correct?
Mm-hmm.
Just to maintain that basic humanity of keeping your employment, you're forced to take this experimental medication that there were already many warning signs that people, there were reasons for pause. Our own father got the vaccine and 4 days later had a heart attack. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So early on, it was very clear that there would be a reason that a person that's totally healthy, at the time 42 years old, no risk of any complications from COVID, and is extremely careful, and even offered to teach remotely, and that was even taken off the table, right?
Ironically, I was still teaching 100% remotely and never stepped foot on campus at all, but I still had to be double vaxxed.
What sense does that make? A person who's in their own home with their own family, forced to get double vaxxed just to keep their job when they're not even coming into actual physical contact with any of their students or other faculty members. The rationale, there is none. The consequences and outcomes were extremely dire. I know that people will watch this and say it's just a coincidence. I have done a little armchair research. There are many women on YouTube whose stories line up exactly with yours. Got the vaccine, 4 to 6 months, 6 to 10 months later, found a lump, and they're saying, oh, well, it's just a coincidence. Well, it absolutely does coincide perfectly with the timeline. Coincidence doesn't equal causation, they'll say. In this case, just judging from the way you felt in your physical body before taking that vaccine to then, now the situation you find yourself in, is there anything that you can think in your mind would point to this vaccine possibly or definitely being a cause of this condition that you find yourself in your own opinion?
I led an extremely preventative lifestyle most of my life, with healthy diets, exercise regularly, everything you could think of, supplements, juicing, fasts, everything. And it wasn't that. And then I just want one thing, the conversations that my administrator, like the top administrators in my college would
2 minutes, literally 2 minutes.
The top administrators in my college would try to convince me why it was in my best interest to get the vaccines, where they have absolutely no business to do with my health at all, and definitely are not medical professionals. So the whole thing just seems like my worst nightmare. I'm just glad that I was able to keep it from my children.
There you have it. It's a story that is unfathomable, except for that it's happening to many people all around the world. So we're forced to believe it. God bless you, and thank you for giving us this time and taking what little energy you have on this day to tell people your story.
Thank you, Mitch. God bless you.
God bless. It's important that I make clear my intention for bringing Danielle's story to the world. This is not an campaign. This is a campaign seeking justice for Danielle and anyone else around the world who feels they were put in a similar position and suffered a similar fate. And believe me, there are many, which I will get to later. So what exactly does justice for Danielle look like? Well, first and foremost, simply acknowledgement that this was in fact a injury and therefore should be treated as such, meaning that at least her children should be awarded enough compensation to last them their entire lives. However, the manufacturers of this product were conveniently preemptively indemnified against any and all liability resulting from injuries, deaths, or adverse events resulting from the administration of their product. In fact, I've been in touch with many California law firms which specialize in injury, and they all have the same thing to say. We're sorry our hands are tied. It was covered under EUA. It's untouchable. We get dozens of these calls each week. This makes it as clear as day. The powers that be knew there were going to be grave consequences and therefore great risks to their profits, which incidentally were the highest of all time, and they made sure to protect themselves and their bottom line. So that would be first. A lot of money, a gigantic sum of money. But as of right now, that seems very unlikely. So what next? Some assurance that an atrocity such as this is never allowed to happen again. It must be written into law that no person is ever to be pressured, cornered, forced, or coerced into putting anything in their body that they do not want to, nor to undergo any medical procedure that they do not want to. You see, Danielle knew this was bad news. She and I engaged in many texts in the days and weeks leading up to the day she was forced to take the product or lose her job and subsequently her family's lifeline. Here she wrote on December 5th, 2021 at 7:37 p.m. By the way, I'm officially signed up to get the jab on the 9th because I see no way out of this. It's definitely a principles thing because I certainly have taken plenty of health risks, including eating too much sugar and gluten this season and traveling to Africa with all its hazards, etc. I'm trying to talk myself out of the horror of being forced to undergo a more harm than good medical procedure to save my 100% work from home job. Then she wrote on December 9th, 2021 at 6:53 p.m. I am officially jabbed, and I need to tell you about this experience. The nurse I had was basically anti-vax and anti-mandate. As it turned out, those texts were a chilling foreshadowing. Here's our text exchange from exactly 1 year later on December 7th, 2022. At 10:59 p.m. Eastern Time, she writes, "Are you able to call?" I said, "Sorry, I have to wake up at 4:45 a.m. Is everything okay? Can I call tomorrow after 10 a.m. Eastern Time?" She wrote, "I heard from the doctor." I said, "What's the situation?" "Cancer." It's as if she reluctantly took it and then her health deteriorated at warp speed. Now I know the immediate rebuttal to the claim that is being made. Coincidence does not equal causation. But before you completely discount what you're being presented with here, please take a look at this news story that I can virtually guarantee you didn't see.
A side effect of the COVID-19 vaccine could mirror signs of breast cancer. Dr. Suzanne Bays, medical director of the Covenant Cancer Care Center, explains it's not something to panic about.
Swollen lymph nodes can cause some discomfort and also can be mistaken for cancer lymph nodes if we didn't know that the patient had the vaccine.
Dr. Bays says usually enlarged lymph nodes will resolve on their own. If you notice this side effect, here's what she says to do.
I would tell my patients, wait 3 or 4 weeks. If it's not getting better, definitely report it to your provider.
Physicians at MD Anderson are seeing an uptick of mammograms and other diagnostic imaging exams. showing findings that can be confused with cancer in patients who have recently received one of the mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. That's the Pfizer or Moderna ones.
In the midst of Breast Cancer Awareness Month comes news that has doctors concerned. The news is that COVID booster shots can cause lymph node inflammation.
Yeah, oncologists are worrying that it could keep women from getting their yearly mammogram. But as John Shumway reports, doctors are warning against any delay.
A swollen lymph node can be an indicator of breast cancer. It can also create a false concern if it's the result of a vaccine. The impact on lymph nodes from the COVID vaccines created quite a stir a year ago.
We didn't know a lot about this in the beginning and what it was going to do.
But a year later, there's no question whether it's the original dose or the booster shot, it
Can cause lymph nodes under the arm, usually of that same side that you had the shot on, to become enlarged. They can be painful, that sort of thing.
And because it can show up in your mammogram, Allegheny Health Network's Dr. Alicia Sumpkin says
You should technically wait about 4 to 6 weeks, if you can, after that last shot to get your mammogram. However, if that's going to cause a delay, a significant delay in anything in your workup, then do not delay it.
However, and this is the critical point.
If you have any symptoms whatsoever, you should not delay anything.
But Dr. Sumpkin says make sure you let everyone know that you've had the vaccine shot and which arm it was in.
The yearly mammogram, a standard checkup for many women. But now COVID vaccines are changing the picture.
One of the body's first response is the lymph node.
MD Anderson's Dr. Jessica Leong explains a vaccine is designed to trigger your antibodies, which are made in lymph nodes and can cause those glands to swell.
And it has been reported for other vaccines, and for example, the flu vaccine.
But because so many women are getting COVID vaccines now, swollen lymph nodes are showing up in mammograms. And swollen glands can mean an infection, breast or blood cancer, or just a vaccine reaction.
So now you might be saying, okay, yeah, I never saw or heard about that, but they explicitly say in the story that it does not cause breast cancer and that it was leading to false positive breast cancer screenings. Well, here is a different set of news stories that I am also sure you didn't see.
COVID may have saved a local nurse's life.
Yeah, Jackie Arvin works on the front lines of the pandemic, so she got vaccinated. Afterwards, she noticed some swelling, then a lump. Right away, she went to the doctor. It was breast cancer. Since that February morning, her neighborhood, the Twins Hill neighborhood in Anne Arundel County, has been with her down this very long road. The leaves will slowly fade and fall, the sign of a new season. Another sign, you see this road back there? This road, who knew it would be a sign for a victory lap?
This is the best today, Jackie, ring the bell.
And here's another sign.
Oh God, I'm gonna start crying. We've been waiting for this all summer.
Well, the wait is over.
We just said we're gonna make it through this, so we did.
Nurse Jackie, at 41, married and the mother of 3, has breast cancer.
This is one of the hardest things she's ever done. She's raising 3 girls, and you know, she's just amazing.
So her husband, Rick, who is an Air Force vet and a buoy volunteer, decided to make this a big day.
And seeing just how incredible she's done and her attitude and just, it's everything. It's everything. It's the hope that we all have if we face a similar situation.
I'm gonna go get the girl. We'll be back.
And the girl would get the surprise of her life on this road to recovery.
Thank you guys. You guys are so sweet. Hi. I probably shouldn't hug everybody here.
You should. What's this like for you today, Jackie?
Kind of surreal, completely overwhelming. I mean, I knew that I had friends and I knew people cared about me, but I didn't know like this. I love you. Aww. Stay away.
How proud are you of her?
She's my wife. I love her. She's wonderful. Proud of her with this, proud of her with everything she does.
Kelly, she has no family history of breast cancer. And she has made it her mission now to get her friends, her sisters, they all went in for mammograms to get tested. Everything's coming back great. And for the inspiration that Jackie is leading, that neighborhood is just tremendous, and a lot of love out there today when we need it the most. Way to go, Jackie's sound asleep right now after that round of chemo today.
Oh, For more than a year now, Dr. Malika Marshall has been answering your questions about the coronavirus and the COVID-19 vaccines.
And one of those answers may have saved a woman's life. Dr. Malika is here tonight. And doctor, she was concerned about a change she noticed after she received a COVID vaccine.
That's right. So I received an email from this viewer who had noticed lymph node enlargement and swelling after getting her COVID vaccine. But weeks later, it hadn't gotten better. So I encouraged her to get evaluated, and fortunately, she did. Earlier this year, 44-year-old Amy Manganero received her first COVID-19 vaccine. 3 weeks later, her second. Around that time, she noticed her breast and lymph nodes on the same side she received her shots were growing in size and becoming tender.
I was noticing some swelling, which I assumed was a lymphatic reaction to the vaccination. However, it kind of lingered on longer than it frankly should have.
And it was getting worse. So she reached out to me.
My mom said, you know, she's answering coronavirus questions. You should just go ahead and email her and ask. So I did. And I think you had said, you know, if it's more than 10 days or so, that it could be something else and I should get it checked.
And she was shocked by what the doctors found. This otherwise healthy woman who had never skipped a mammogram and had no family history was diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer.
Unlike a more commonly seen type of breast cancer diagnosed through screening, inflammatory breast cancer is characterized by a cancer growing into the skin lymphatics.
The breast becomes swollen, heavy, and tender. The overlying skin often thickened, discolored, and dimpled, much like the peel of an orange. Inflammatory breast cancer makes up only about 5% of breast cancers and can be aggressive. Amy has undergone 16 weeks of chemotherapy and is having surgery this week. Then radiation with plans for reconstruction sometime after that.
So my message to other women would be, you know, obviously get your mammograms, but beyond that, be vigilant about any changes that you notice and act on them. I can sit here and feel sorry for myself, or I can try to use what I'm going through to try to help other women, and that's really what I want to do.
Now look, to be clear, the COVID-19 vaccines do not cause breast cancer or any other type of cancer. In Amy's case, the two were simply coincidental. But her story is an important reminder that if you develop symptoms that seem easily explained by something, but that last longer than expected, you should call your doctor and get evaluated. And I didn't save her life, but Amy did, and some very astute doctors.
It's so important to listen to your body.
Absolutely.
And take action.
Shortly after I had my vaccine, 2 weeks later, I went to have my routine mammogram. The doctors found something, and they told me it was a COVID node. She told me the COVID node was nothing to worry about. It happened with the vaccine. So we'll check it 3 months later with an ultrasound. And then I went to see my surgeon, oncologist, and he said, Jill, you have a COVID node. I said, yeah, I looked into that. I said, nothing to worry about, I was told. And he said, when you get the ultrasound, you should do a biopsy too. So I insisted on a biopsy. They didn't want to do it. I knew I had to be aggressive on this one. Everybody tried to discourage me. My doctors tried to discourage me. There was a lot of back and forth. And then finally, I got agreement that they were going to do a biopsy. I went back to work, substitute teaching, and I'm on the playground and I get the call. And as soon as she picked up the call, I knew. I said, it's bad news, isn't it? And she said, you have the same breast cancer again on the other side. I was kind of numb of, okay, Jill, you did it before. You can do it again and just get through it. If I hadn't have found the cancer through the enlarged lymph node that my body was alerting me I had cancer, I would have been dead in a year, because they wouldn't have found the cancer till 1 year later in my next mammogram when HER2 positive had invaded my body.
My name is Sue Fuller, and I am an administrative assistant here at First Financial Southlake. I've been with the bank for over 20 years. In April of 2022, I was diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer. The first thing I noticed was at the first of the year, the lymph nodes in my neck were swollen. I mentioned it to my doctors, and they said, have you had the COVID booster or the COVID vaccine? I said, yes. That was one of the side effects of the COVID booster vaccine. And so they weren't really concerned about it. So in March, I noticed an irritation on my breast. I have very sensitive skin, so I thought it might be the laundry detergent I was using, but it wasn't going away. So I decided to make an appointment with my doctor and have it checked. I thought, am I being a hypochondriac? But it was weird and it wasn't going away. I made an appointment with my doctor. He examined me, said, I don't think it's anything. I'm going to prescribe some antibiotics. A week later, I came back for my appointment and there was no change. He still didn't think there was anything wrong, but wanted me to go have a mammogram just in case. I had just had a mammogram in October of 2021. This is March of 2022. I had my mammogram, and for the first time, the radiologist came in the room with me and said, I think there's something wrong. I don't think it's serious, but would you mind having an MRI? Again, the MRI showed no lumps, just a difference from my previous mammograms. And they suggested I see a breast surgeon. When I went for my appointment with the breast surgeon, that was on Good Friday in April, he immediately told me I had inflammatory breast cancer. That next Monday, I had the biopsy results, and not only did I have inflammatory breast cancer, but the type was HER2 positive, which is another aggressive form of cancer. Because it is aggressive and fast-moving, it was stage 4. So for the rest of my life, I will have to take immunotherapy. I will never be in remission because I was stage 4. The cancer will always be in my body.
So which is it? Does it lead to false positives or does it lead to true positives? The main thing I want to call your attention to is the fact that both of these stories were barely covered. And what is far, far worse is that when you look into the comment sections of each of these stories, you see literally countless others making the exact same claim that Danielle and I are making. Where's the follow-up on that? Unfortunately, the rabbit hole goes much, much deeper than that. And paradoxically, sometimes the more evidence, circumstantial or otherwise, a person on a rant like this gives, the more it serves to discredit them somehow. So for the purposes of this introductory abridged video, I'll leave it at that. Here are my big asks. 1, please share this video far and wide. This information must get out, because even if this hasn't affected you personally yet, it might someday. 2, if you or someone you know thinks there's a case to be won against the company or government agencies that are responsible for Danielle suffering the injury she did, please contact me at mitchell@justicefordanielle.com. And 3, if you found yourself rejecting the claims being made here, please consider being more open-minded. My sister was a Wesleyan graduate, a PhD from Cornell, a Stanford and UC Davis professor. Not only was she no dummy, she was a genius, and she knew what had happened here. We're asking people to lay aside their politics and their biases and to look at this objectively and compassionately. Simply put, the companies and individuals responsible for perpetrating this morally reprehensible act have been sneakily granted total immunity and must be brought to justice. Please follow Danielle's posthumous journey for justice on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, as well as on the website, www.justicefordanielle.com. Yes, I am conducting a fundraising effort there to secure a forever home for her children, as well as establish a foundation providing emotional support for grieving children as part of Danielle's legacy. So if you feel moved to donate to this cause, know that it will be received with gratitude. I would like to offer you my sincere thanks for taking the time to watch and listen. God bless.